Alright, so what we're going to talk about now is mistakes. What they are and how to avoid them. So the first one I kind of want to go over is items that are gold plated and items that are what they call rolled gold or gold filled. Because these are areas that you'll get burned in, and sometimes you'll be able to catch that mistake and sometimes you won't catch it. It'll get sent off to the refiner, and I'll talk about that here. But the first one we're going to go over is gold plated. Gold-plated items have almost no gold in them. I mean, basically they take an item that's base metal, they put it in a solution that has dissolved gold in the solution, run an electrical current through it, the gold, very minimal amount of gold, binds to the piece, giving it its gold color, and it wears pretty well, but it doesn't really last over time. Over time it'll start to wear off and you'll be able to see through the gold plating. The good thing about gold-plated items is they're easy to tell they're fake. Usually the quality or the craftsmanship in the piece isn't very good, and also acid will eat right through this gold plating. So if it's a piece you've already bought and maybe you're trying to find out if it is fake, you can literally take that piece, put it on test stone, put a drop of acid on it, 14 karat generally. If you use too high of acid, it'll eat through almost anything, but generally just take your 14 karat acid, put a drop on there. If after a few seconds it just starts like it'll just start like bubbling and getting a few vapor fumes and turning bluish green, and it'll literally look like it's boiling, if that happens, you know that the item's gold plated. Now if you put it on there and nothing happens, that's a pretty good sign. The one thing you're going to want to do, especially since you're sending off to the refiner, it doesn't matter, is take one of those needle files, make a notch in the piece, whether it's a ring or heavily scratch the chain, and then put the acid where that scratches. And if it still doesn't react, well, maybe the piece actually is just a poorly made piece of jewelry and it actually is 10 karat or 14 karat gold. But more than likely, if it's something you're suspecting gold plating, it just doesn't look right, doesn't feel right, you'll start to get this feel for it. You put that acid on there and it'll just start flaring up, boiling up, turning bluish green, fumes, vapors, it'll stink. I mean, everything. You really will be able to tell that it's fake almost immediately. So that's the great thing about gold-plated items. They're easy to tell that they're fake. The bad thing about it is if you buy it and you don't realize it, you're going to get burned more than a rolled gold or gold-filled item, because rolled gold and gold-filled are the same thing. Talk about how they got these terms here. But basically they take a layer of gold, actual 10 karat, 14 karat gold, and they fuse it to a decent sized chunk of base metal, and they put it in, you know, like a press, and they heat it up until the metals are fused together. Then they roll these metals down so that it's a thinner sheet, more workable sheet, and it also helps fuse those layers together. That's where you get the rolled gold. And these layers, then, the great thing about that is over time, when people used to make jewelry out of this, they weared well. I mean, if you had a piece of gold-filled jewelry, it can look just like gold, and it can be 100 years old and have been worn all the time, and it still looks like gold. It still has that gold tinge, and it even kind of has the feel of gold. But the thing about it is that it's only a thin layer of real gold on the outside. It's really only about 5% gold. So if you buy this item, as you know, especially, you know, even if you're working on a 30% margin, you're still going to get burned. And if you're working on 10%, you're going to lose quite a bit of money. When you're looking for rolled gold items, generally they're older. They're going to be items that are like from 1950s and before. Tends to be a little bit more of the popular era. A lot of things were rolled gold back then. Necklaces, rings, all kinds of stuff. And the stamping that you'll see will be like 1/20th GF 14K, 1/20th GF 12K, 1/20th GF 10K. GF obviously means gold filled. 1/20th actually means 1/20th of the weight of the piece, that's the 5% here, is 14 karat gold. 1/20th of this item's weight is 12 karat gold. One of the big things that should tip you off when you're doing this, if you see the marking 12 karat, you really need to inspect that. We don't really make jewelry out of 12 karat in the United States. We make it out of 10 and 14, 18. So if you see 12 karat, that's usually one of the only designations they'll use. They usually only use 12 karat gold in gold-filled items. So that should be instantly something that tips you off to investigate that further, figure out if it's real or not. Now the hard thing about gold-filled and rolled gold items is that just doing a simple scratch test like we taught, where you just take the piece, lightly scratch it on stone and put the acid on there, can give you a false reading. Because like I said, the layer of gold is thick enough on there that it's worn well. It's really actually, you know, the weight of the piece is 5% gold. There's a decent amount of gold on the outside. So when you lightly scratch it, you've only taken off that surface layer of gold. So when the acid tests that, like I said, it actually is 14 karat, so it'll tell you it is 14 karat. What you need to do on those pieces is you're looking for that stamp, any kind of stamp here, then you're going to scratch test it, then you're going to magnetic test it, and if the people are okay with it, you're going to make a little notch in it and put an acid kind of directly on it, just real quickly. I mean, it'll happen instantly, but you make a little notch, you put that acid in there, it starts bubbling up, you know it's gold filled. If it doesn't, and it stays the same, you can be pretty confident that it's actually gold. But that's one of the things we're talking about when testing is testing. There's not just one testing method you're going to use. You're not just going to use acid test. You're not just going to use a magnet. You know, the magnet may react to the base metal there, causing the whole item to be magnetic. It may not. The acid may only be testing that surface layer. You know, it may not. I mean, so all of these things come into play. That's why you tell you to look for the stamp. You got a jeweler's loupe to look for the stamp. Every piece that's well made, or that anything, any kind of piece that any kind of manufacturer or jeweler had any pride in making, they're going to stamp it. So you're looking for that 14 karat stamp to correspond with the test that you do, that when you test it for 14 karat, that it holds up to that test, and that the item's non-magnetic. As you do more gold buying, you'll start to get a sense and kind of a feel for it. I know that sounds crazy right now, but you almost be able to pick something up and be like, okay, this is right, or no, this item needs to be tested more. And right now that doesn't make a lot of sense, but as you buy more, you will see that you'll start to hone your skills. Because I know right now, if I'm telling you to do a magnet test, to loop every single piece, to then acid test it, to then make a file notch, I mean, you're going, gosh, if I do 10 pieces, it's going to take me an hour. Well, you know, you definitely want to take that much time, whatever it takes, on big, heavy pieces, and then, you know, just after the buy, go home and practice on them until you get this skill and you can, you know, be a little more confident in your buying. These are the two things you're going to want to look out for, like I said. Gold-plated, rolled gold items. Gold-plated, really bad because you're not really going to get any money back for it. Rolled gold, you do want to keep these items, because if you keep them and you get like a cigar box full of it, it can be like $300-500 worth of gold. So it's still something that, or more, I mean, just depends on the price of gold, and whether it was 10 karat, 14 karat, I mean, it could be as high as $900. So it's definitely something you want to keep these. Is it something you want to go around and be buying off people readily? It's kind of hard, because you really can only offer them like $2 a piece, maybe $5 a piece, depending on how heavy it is. So it's something you pick up at garage sales, estate sales. Just keep it off to the side. One day you're going to refine it and make some money on it. So we're going to move on here to the next thing you got to look out for. This is becoming more rampant problem. I have nothing against China whatsoever, but the Chinese tend to make jewelry that isn't real, but they claim it's real. A lot of times what you'll find now, I get them all the time, is some ring, and it's usually pretty gaudy. It's usually got a bunch of, you know, fake gemstones on it, or CZs or something, and it will be stamped 925 for silver. But it will also be stamped inside the ring, China. I almost never buy these, ever, because the Chinese, it's like, by them stamping China in there, gives them the right to not actually make it sterling silver. I mean, it's so often just a base metal when they do this, or it's like silver plated, but they stamp it 925. It's very deceiving, and yet it's very common. In fact, I talked to a lady who makes jewelry, and she was ordering supplies from China, and when she went to order her sterling silver supplies, they said, do you want it stamped 925, or do you actually want it to be sterling silver? I mean, that they gave her the option to just put a 925 stamp on it. Now in the U.S., the manufacturer's not going to do that, but in China, you know, you can get your way, and if you're ordering the stuff, you can have it stamped 925. Very deceiving, so it's just one of the things you want to look out for. Anything, and whether it's claiming that it's gold or whether it's claiming that it's silver, I would just be very leery. It's not to say that, you know, every piece of jewelry made in China is not real. It's just saying that, you know, on a ring that first off doesn't have any valuable gemstones on it, you can tell they're just big gaudy CZs or something to that effect. It kind of looks costumey. It may even look like it's gold plated, and it's stamped 925, and it's also stamped China. Be real cautious on it. Most of the time it's silver that you're going to find that's been falsified, that they're saying it's silver. So even if you did buy it, you're really not at that big of a loss. You might have lost $8, $10, but you know, you do it enough, it all adds up.